Hi, welcome to step 9. Okay, step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 9. The spiritual principle of step 9 is justice. Make wrong things right. The definition of justice is just behavior or treatment, fairness, honesty, integrity, morality. I need to read the long form in the back. That's the traditions. Okay. Good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. Let me go back and say that I heard when you make direct amends to such people, it doesn't always mean in person, and except when to do so would injure them or others. Others, you count as others. So we're not trying to harm anyone in any way, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, any way at all. Good judgment definition means involves collecting and assessing important information by listening to others, asking open-ended questions, focusing on the process rather than the outcome, learning from people who have good judgment. You consider the risks and weigh the consequences so that when you make a choice, you will weed out the decisions that may cause harmful consequences, making the best decision rather than relying on your own opinion. So we need good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. Sense of timing definition is an understanding of appropriateness, giving someone space, not intruding, knowing when there's a right time for everything. You know, we have to use our intuitive senses in this area. So when you don't know, you don't know. And when you know, you know. So if you don't know, I'd say don't do it. Before I make amends to someone, I want to make sure that I know exactly what I'm going to say, how I'm going to present myself. If I need to practice with another human being, if I need to write it down on a piece of paper and read that piece of paper to another human being, if I need to make a phone call or send a letter or make a living amends, all those things will be worked out ahead of time so that when you get to that place, you have peace in your heart and your mind and you're not stressed out about it too much. And so then someone else is going to be able, maybe more than one person, you'll be able to verify that it's the right time. And sometimes if there is no one else around and the opportunity presents itself, you'll know. So then we want to have what we're going to say ready just in case the opportunity presents itself. Because usually, God is the final judge. He's going to be the one to tell you no matter what. Anyone in AA says no matter what your sponsors say, no matter what anyone says, you still have to follow what you think God wants you to do. Courage. Courage. Have courage on here. I guess courage is just being afraid and doing it anyway. Prudence. Prudence means the ability to govern and discipline oneself by the use of reason. Then we're not gonna jump based on our emotions. We're gonna let our thinking override our feelings. Definition 2, sagacity or shrewdness in the management of affairs. Don't ask me what sagacity, I don't know. You just know when you know. Skill and good judgment in the use of resources. Number 4, caution or circumspection as to danger or risk. So that we're going to make sure that we're not placing ourselves in a position to be hurt. We're not doing that. We're part of others. We're just as important as anyone else. Not more, not less. Paragraph 2, after we made the list of people that we have harmed, have reflected carefully upon each instance. So we're going to meditate on each one and have tried to possess ourselves of the right attitude. We're going to hold the right frame of mind in which to proceed. We'll see that the making of direct amends divides those we should approach into several classes. There will be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become reasonably confident that we can maintain our sobriety. Number 1. So you get sober and you go home and you start realizing the way that your drinking has affected your family members. They're going to be the first ones that you want to come clean with, whether you've even done step 4 or not. You probably will say, wow, I didn't realize how I was behaving. Number 2, there will be those to whom we can only make partial restitution, lest complete disclosures do them or others more harm than good. So you don't want to, there's another place where it talks about you don't want to hurt someone by giving them the truth too much, like that. Number 3, there will be other cases where action ought to be deferred, postponed, and still others in which, by the very nature of the situation, number 4, we shall never be able to make direct personal contact at all. So now you got 4. The ones that when you know you're going to stay sober, you make those amends. Number 2, only partial amends because it might do more harm than good, so you don't tell them everything. Number 3, you have to put it off for a while because of the nature of the situation. Maybe you need more time to recover. Maybe you need a little more therapy or work up a little more courage. Number 4, we shall not be able to make direct personal contact at all. If my presence harms another human being, I'm not going to place myself into their presence. Some of us have. harmed people so much they never want to see us again. And they have the right to never see us again. We should never try to force ourselves on another human being so that we can make amends and feel better about ourselves. Most of us begin making certain kinds of direct amends from the day we join Alcoholics Anonymous. The moment we tell our families, the families, that we are really going to try the program, the process has begun. In this area, there are seldom any questions of timing or caution. We want to come in the door shouting the good news. Oh, the spirit of step 9 is page 87. Oops, let me go to that. Okay, that'll sum it up later. After coming from our first meeting, or perhaps after we have finished reading the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, we usually want to sit down with some member of the family and readily admit the damage we have done by our drinking. That's the first example, number 1. Almost always we want to go further and admit other defects that have made us hard to live with. This will be a very different occasion and in sharp contrast to those hangover mornings when we alternated between reviling ourselves and blaming the family. Okay, so instead of waking up hungover and saying, oh, blaming myself, I'm so stupid, I'm so weak, or blaming them, well, if you wouldn't have stressed me out, maybe I wouldn't have got drunk. Now, this is going to be different because now we're just going to say, I didn't realize how my attitude and actions affected my family, or like it's not going to be about them. At this first setting, it's only necessary that we make a general admission of our defects. It may be unwise at this stage to rehash certain harrowing episodes, shocking events. So this is the partial, an immediate but partial amends, because we haven't even done step 4 yet. We just went to AA, read the book, and said, oh my God, I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, you know? Good judgment will suggest that we ought to take our time. While we may be quite willing to reveal the very worst, we must be sure to remember that we cannot buy our own peace of mind at the expense of others. If you do that, you're just going to add another amends that you're going to have to make on there. So we want to make sure we do it the right way. Much the same approach will apply at the office or factory. We shall think at once of a few people who know all about our drinking and who have been most affected by it. But even in these cases, we may need to use a little more discretion than we did with the family. Discretion. The quality of behaving and speaking in such a way as to avoid causing offense or revealing private information. We may not want to say anything for several weeks or longer. Well, maybe you want to get that together in your head. First, we will wish to be reasonably certain we're on the AA beam. On the AA beam is defined as going in the right direction, working or functioning well. Then we're ready to go to these people to tell them what AA is and what we're trying to do. So we say, I realize that I've had a problem with drinking. I didn't know that. Now we're talking to my boss. I just want you to know I'm taking steps to remedy the situation. This is what I'm doing. I'm working a program of Alcoholics Anonymous or a program of recovery. I'm going to counseling. I have a sponsor. I go to meetings. And then you outline the program. And so I'm learning that, I was powerless in this area. I'm making a connection with a higher power. I'm taking inventory of myself, looking at my shortcomings. I'm willing to make restitution where I have made mistakes at, and I'm continuing with my recovery. Maybe I'm trying to help other people. It's part of my recovery. Okay. We're not going to go to a boss or an employer and say, yeah, I know I've been a drunk, but I quit drinking, so I'm fine now, because it's not honest. Make sure you're honest. You don't have to go into big detail. You don't even have to tell them you're in a program of recovery if you don't want to, but just saying we're sorry isn't going to work. We need to have what we're going to do as an action to remedy the situation. So instead of this, I'm going to do this now. Okay, against this background, we can freely admit the damage we've done and make our apologies. So I realized that when I drank too many drinks on my lunch break, that affected my work, and that's something I'm not going to do anymore. Then there's some financial damages, all these things you have to go over your sponsor with. I also have letters that are templates that were passed down to me from my sponsor and the old timers. So I'll see if I can find those and give you a rundown of those. And maybe I'll just let you screenshot it. But so then there's like person to person. I think we went over this in step 4. There's letters, there's direct amends, there's a personal letter, there's a professional letter, and stuff like that. So then AA has already come up with these things. The generous response of most people to such quiet sincerity, honesty, will often astonish us. Even our severest and most justified critics will frequently meet us more than halfway on the first trial. Even the most bitter, hardest, and most justified, I have backbiter as critic. Someone who talks bad about you. Okay? This atmosphere of approval and praise is apt to be so exhilarating as to put us off balance by creating an insatiable appetite for more of the same. It's going to feed your ego. When you get free from the shame and the guilt and the self-condemnation and the judgment of other people and the addictions, it's going to make you feel good. You're going to want more. That's what that means. It's so exhilarating. It'll make you happy. Yeah. Okay, or we may be tipped over in the other direction when in rare cases we get a cool and skeptical reception. So, cool means showing no friendliness toward a person or enthusiasm for an idea or project. Skeptical is doubtful and suspicious. So, if they do not accept your apology or your amends and they do not care and they don't believe you, that may make you feel like you need to press your point, argue, prove to them that you really are doing what you said you were doing, that you're not lying, that you're telling the truth this time. You know what I mean? It will tempt us to argue or to press our point insistently. argue, give evidence. Or maybe it will tempt us to discouragement and pessimism. So maybe it'll make you lose confidence and have a negative attitude, and you won't want to continue on with the step because of that. But if we have prepared ourselves well in advance, such reactions will not deflect us from our steady and even purpose. We'll be prepared to receive even a negative response. See or insert. Purpose. Purpose. Number one, reason why something is done or used or the cause of something. The reasons why we're doing step 9 is so we can be free from the shame and guilt, so that we're free from alcoholism. No matter what, even if they condemn us, call us liars, whatever, it doesn't matter. All you can do is your part. There are different definitions of purpose, and that is the definition of purpose. And there are some other ones I'm going to tell you because they're all really good. Determination, a feeling of having a reason for what you do. Example, I always admired her for her strength of purpose. Number 3, result. So we have a reason, determination, result, intention, and a subject. Our purpose for doing step 9 is our reason. Then you have purpose, maybe your determination, your purpose for, and then the result. So the purpose of doing a program is for the result, an intended result. Okay, and then for intention, something is set up as an object or end to be attained. And number 5, the subject under discussion. A subject under discussion or an action in course of execution. A person's purpose can be defined as an overarching intention that is personally meaningful and of consequence to the world beyond yourself. Having a purpose can help you organize your life, give you clear direction, and motivate you. Some research suggests that people who feel like they have something to live for take better care of themselves, which can lead to better cognitive functioning, greater longevity, and lower stress levels. Motivation, cause, plan, reason, wish, value, usefulness. All those different definitions of purpose. After this preliminary trial at making amends, we may enjoy such a sense of relief that we conclude our task is finished. We will want to rest on our laurels, our past accomplishments. So yeah, I did, I made 2 or 3 amends. Now I feel good. I'm not, I don't feel like I have cravings anymore. I don't have the guilt and shame, so I can stop there. I did that the first time around. I didn't finish my amends because my sponsor died, so it was real difficult. But it really wasn't her fault. I didn't feel I didn't feel like it was a life and death thing anymore all of a sudden. Now I know it is. This temptation to skip the more humiliating and dreaded meetings that still remain may be great. It's fear. We will often manufacture plausible excuses for dodging these issues entirely. We will make up seemingly logical reasons for not taking care of the problems that we need to take care of. Or we may just procrastinate, take our time, telling ourselves the time is not yet, when in reality we have already passed up many a fine chance to right a serious wrong, so to correct a problem. Because we are, as alcoholics, um, we've avoided any kind of pain for so long. Mental pain, any pain to our egos, our self confidence has been so crushed. We don't want to, we don't want to, we can only take so much, so we just try not to. And it's just like, it's a, it's a habit. Let's not talk prudence while practicing evasion. So let's not talk good judgment while practicing avoidance and escapism and still running away from it. We got to stop running. As soon as we begin to feel confident in our new way of life, we have begun by our behavior to and example to convince those about us that we are indeed changing for the better. It is usually safe to talk in complete frankness with those who have been seriously affected, even those who may be only a little or not at all aware of what we have done to them. So, break it down. When you get a little bit of self-esteem and a little bit of confidence that you're going to stay sober and you got your routine down and things are going good, and your actions change and your way of thinking changes, then you can show and prove that you're actually changing by your life. That's usually safe enough to talk completely openly and honestly with the people who have been influenced, touched by, harmed by what we done to them. I'm just going to say, I've had a really hard life. No one knows. But I'm one of those that needs outside help. So I'm not ashamed to say that I go to therapy, and I'll be crossing I'll be crossing it by my therapist and or one of my two sponsors, because I need more help than the average person before I make a decision, and then I'll pray about it before I decide what I'm going to do, because it's so important. I don't do something that's going to harm me or someone else anymore. I'm done with that. The only exceptions we will make will be cases where our disclosure would cause actual harm. So we're not going to tell somebody something that's going to hurt them. These conversations can begin in a casual or natural way, but if no such opportunity presents itself at some point, we will want to summon all our courage and head straight for the person concerned and lay our cards on the table. So hopefully, without groveling, and we don't beg, we can be adult enough to say, without making a super big deal out of it and not underplaying it and not overplaying it, but like in the middle. Usually it's easier to do that with family, but we can kind of tentatively feel when you talk to someone else, you can make an opening statement and see how they react to it. So if they're receptive or not. If they're not going to be receptive and they're going to shut you down, I say just let it go for a minute. Go regroup, talk to your sponsor or counselor, write it down, and deal with it when it's the right time. Okay, we needn't wallow in excessive remorse before those we harmed. We don't have to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're not going to be overly dramatic like that, okay? But amends at this level should always be forthright and generous. Direct, clear, ungrudgingly. They deserve an apology, okay? They deserve an apology. They deserve to be treated with respect. They deserve the amends and on your part. They deserve the effort on your part to make things right. And we know they do. There can be remorse is a deep regret or guilt. That's not going to help. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you beg them or not. They've already made up their mind if they're going to forgive you or not. So it doesn't matter. You do what you do your part. There can only be one thought or one consideration which should qualify our desire for a complete disclosure of the damage we have done. That will arise in the occasional situation where to make a full revelation would seriously harm the one to whom we are making amends. A revelation is a surprising and unknown fact. Okay. There can only be one consideration which should qualify our desire for complete disclosure. Or quite as important other people. Okay, we cannot, for example, unload a detailed account of extramarital adventuring upon the shoulders of our unsuspecting wife or husband. And even in those cases where such a matter must be discussed, let's try to avoid harming third parties, whoever they may be. It does not lighten our burden when we recklessly make the crosses of others heavier. So you can't just go up to someone and say, hey, I know that you don't know I hurt you, but I hurt you this many ways and this many times, and it was really shocking. And that's not fair to do that to someone else. Heavy cross, an unpleasant or painful situation or person that you have to accept and deal with, although you find it very difficult. Yeah. Many a razor-edged question can arise in other departments of life where the same principle is involved. What principle? A principle of not harming another human being. We're not going to harm them further. We're not gonna make ourselves feel better at someone else's expense. That's not what we're gonna do. That principle. Suppose, for instance, that we've drunk up a good chunk of our firm's money, whether by borrowing or on a heavily padded expense account. An expense account, a padded expense account is, let's go back to razor edge. A razor-edged question is piercing, penetrating, sharp-witted, shrewd. A padded expense account is exaggerating the cost of a meal or ride and keeping the difference by submitting fake documentation, submitting the same receipt more than once to request reimbursement. It's stealing with receipts and numbers. Suppose that this may continue to go undetected if we say nothing. Do we instantly confess our irregularities to the firm in the practical certainty that we shall be fired and become unemployable, or are we going to be so rigidly righteous about making amends that we don't care what happens to the family and home? Or do we first consult those who are to be gravely affected? Do we lay the matter before our sponsor or spiritual advisor, earnestly asking God's help and guidance, meanwhile resolving to do the right thing when it becomes clear, cost what it may? That means, so I submitted a receipt twice so that I could take the money out of the till. We'll just say that on the extra money and put it in my pocket. And then if you say nothing, then you can't make amends for it. So do you say nothing or do you tell on yourself? Because if you tell on yourself, then you might lose your home and you can't feed your family, you know. Or do you go talk to your spouse and say, what do you think I should do? And then you talk to your sponsor or your preacher or your counselor, whatever, and say, I'm not sure what to do in this matter. Get their advice and pray about it and pray about it and wait for God to answer you. And then while you're doing all that, you have to hold your mind and your heart in readiness to be willing to do the right thing, no matter what the consequences are to you. It's the other people, but we are other people, but still. Of course, there's no pat answer which can fit all such dilemmas, but all of them do require complete willingness to make amends as fast and as far as may be possible in a given set of conditions. Above all, we should try to be absolutely sure that we are not delaying because we're afraid. Ooh, for the readiness to take the full consequence of our past acts and to take responsibility for the well being of others at the same time is the very spirit of step 9. So, yeah, responsibility. Responsibility. I don't know why I cried on that. Yep. There, I did it.